Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Sandra Banks, and I'm honored to serve here at Waterloo as Vice President, University Relations, but also honored to serve as your host for today's open forum. I would like to acknowledge, as we begin, for those that are in the room and those that are not with us today, that the University of Waterloo is located on the traditional territories of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people. The University of Waterloo is situated on the Haldimand Tract, the land promised to the Six Nations that includes 10 kilometers on each side of the Grand River. I would like to say, first and foremost, welcome to our students, faculty, and staff members that are with us here at Fed Hall. It is very amazing and inspiring to see Fed Hall brimming with all of your attendance today. We look forward to sharing with you updates on the President's Advisory Committee on Student Mental Health, hearing your feedback, and inviting you to engage throughout the afternoon. I'd also like to acknowledge that we have with us this afternoon members of the President's Advisory Committee on Student Mental Health. We also have several community partners, all of whom will be acknowledged as we move through the formal part of the program this afternoon. And for those participating via live stream, we are also pleased that you have joined us this afternoon. It was just last year that our President, Feridun Hamdullahpur, called for the establishment of an advisory committee on student mental health. And this committee has spent the last several months exploring the complex issue of student mental health wellness on our campus. Front and center in this learning and listening exercise, of course, was the student voice. Today, you will hear how we plan to turn the recommendations found on the pages of the report that many of you have in your hands today into action. Let me share with you how we will proceed through the afternoon. We will hear from three speakers to start, and I'd like to welcome and acknowledge the presence of those three speakers now. President and Vice Chancellor Feridun Hamdullahpur, Dr. Walter Mittelstad, Director of Campus Wellness at Waterloo, and Angela Pereira of the University of Waterloo's Alumni Council. Following the three speakers, we'll move into a question and answer session, followed by an opportunity for all of you to engage with many of the stations that we've set up around the room in Fed Hall, where you can learn more, share your feedback, ask questions, and directly engage in the conversation on student mental health. We do look forward to hearing from you. It's a different format that we are testing today. We hope and believe it'll serve the conversation well, and you're always welcome to help yourself to refreshments as we go throughout the afternoon. Now, I would like to formally introduce Feridun Hamdullahpur, Waterloo's President and Vice Chancellor, to speak about the report and give his perspective on the recommendations and the next steps for action as we continue this conversation. Thank you. Feridun.
Thank you, Sandra, and good afternoon, everybody. Let me echo your words of thanks and thank everybody for being here. Your presence is extremely important to us, is extremely important to the subject matter that we are discussing here. This is a very important day for our community, for our university, but especially for our students. As Sandra mentioned, about a year ago, as we were trying to deal with various aspects of a very important topic, mental health, especially student mental health and their well-being, we were also devastated by 2 suicides on our campus. That prompted us to move in a really drastic way. And at that time, we said that, as is indicated in the report, that we are not alone in confronting the issues of mental health and suicide. The struggles, specifically among youth, are present across our country and will continue to require a coordinated effort to address. Further, we said, to that end, we will endeavor to come together as a community to see what more we can do. And this is exactly the reason why we decided it was time for us to act and put a group of people together who were committed, who were really willing to better understand this mental health issue, how it's related to well-being of our students, and what it is that we collectively as a university, as a community, try to address this very complex, multidimensional problem. I am so grateful that the moment we announced that we were forming this committee, then we asked for participation. We received, I am not exaggerating, thousands of people wanting to participate, wanting to engage, wanting to contribute. And we were able to bring everybody together. We formed a committee, and I'm so proud that in a relatively short time, we were able to consult and talk to every person, every group possible on our campus and outside of our campus. And I'm also grateful, especially to the members of the committee, but to Walter and Chris, okay, for your hard work, and our student leaders, everybody who was there, that they gave their 100% attention and dedication to this report. As a result, when I received this report on February 15th, I spent a significant amount of time going through it several times. And I was very impressed, very pleased with how comprehensive the report was and how really impactful all 36 recommendations were. I believe we have something in our hands that we can start taking really concrete steps towards addressing a very important problem, very important issue of mental health on our campus. We realize that this is not just confined to our campus. This is not just a University of Waterloo challenge. This is a societal issue. But nevertheless, this is what more than 37,000 of our students told us, that it is so important to them. That is one major thing that is preventing many of them from really reaching their full potential, and sometimes ending up in situations that it is completely irreversible, and one of the most saddest times in my life to witness these happening in the form of suicides. We want to better understand this. We want to have a comprehensive understanding and approach to this problem and see what it is that we can do to make this place a better supporting university, a better place for you to be able to come out very clearly, comfortably, and openly say, I need help. And for us to be able to reach out and say, well, we are here before even you reach out for help, that we are there for you. Of the 36 recommendations that we thought, well, how do we then go about them? What do we do next? One of the recommendations was to establish something that will provide continuity to this committee and to this report. Makes a lot of sense. At the same time, to ensure that we are paying collective, comprehensive, cohesive attention to each one of these recommendations, but understand how they are linked with each other. For that, I didn't want to think about it anymore. I thought it was very clear, then accepted one of the recommendations immediately to form a committee that will provide that continuity, that will ensure that these recommendations are thoroughly reviewed and followed and implemented, and make sure that the accountabilities will be in place, make sure that we understand the impact and effectiveness of these recommendations, and how we measure progress, at the same time still be open to our communities to receive further input, further understanding. For that, I asked Professor John Herdes. John, if you could just stand up for a second, professor in the Faculty of Applied Health Sciences, to chair this important committee. In the next coming few days, we will come back to you with more announcements as to the terms of reference, mandate, and membership of this committee. The second recommendation that was there But as soon as I received this report in mid-February, our students and our administration with Chris and Walter, they already started working on one aspect of it, and that was additional resources in the form of counselors. Before even decided to form the implementation committee, I had a recommendation that our student leaders, they had already came forward and put $600,000 towards bringing more counselors. The university didn't spend any time at all thinking about it. It was matched with another $600,000. As a result, $1.2 million is dedicated now for bringing more counselors so that our students, the growing need for access to counselors and the services will be met, and we are hoping that the wait times will be reduced to a very, very short or no times at all. And with that, we will also look at other aspects of what kind of supports, in addition to counseling supports, we can put together, and this will be the part of the mandate of the implementation committee. Again, I want to repeat again that how grateful I am to our communities, our students. You've provided valuable input to this community. You made sure that we heard your voices, your concerns all the time. Our staff members, you have been right with us every step of the way. You provided your time, your volunteer time to this cause, to this issue, so that you will be there. You will not just be doing whatever you do at your offices, but you will help us to help our students. And our faculty members, your willingness to go well beyond what you do in your classrooms, in your labs, in your teaching and learning, you make sure that the well-being of our students is also a very high priority for you. For that, I am grateful to all of you. What I'd like to do next, I'm going to step down, and Sandra is going to come and introduce Walter, and he is going to give you the details of the report. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Feridun, for the passion and commitment in your remarks. My job is short and simple. I will introduce Walter Mittelstadt. He serves as the chair of the advisory committee. He also serves as director of campus wellness and is a proud alumni of the University of Waterloo, having received his honors BA here, after which he moved on to receive an MA and PhD in clinical psychology from the University of Saskatchewan. Walter, we look forward to your summary of the report.
Thank you very much, Sandra. And thank you, Feridun, for your comments and also for your commitment to this effort at the very beginning and over the whole year. It's been a real pleasure to see the commitment of the university at the highest levels to student wellness and to mental health. I'm going to take some time to first of all, actually, before I do that, I want to introduce some special guests. I don't see them. I see a lot of people, and if I don't I'm not able to acknowledge you, forgive me, but we've had very active engagement with community partners here over the last 8 months, and some of them are here today. We have Scott Williams from KW Counseling here. Supposed to be here, acknowledged. Wanda Wagler-Martin. We have Elise Brewer-Singh from the Waterloo Region Suicide Prevention Council. Wanda is from Shalom Counseling, just across the park from here. Alison Burnett from University of Guelph, very important partner in doing this work in wellness, and Karen Ostrander from WLU. Thank you very much for being here and for participating in our process. We've also had active participation from members from Grand River Hospital, from CMHA Grand River, all of whom are trusted members of the community in providing mental health services. I'm not sure how many of you have read the report. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I think just to give you some high-level things to think about today and things that we will continue to work on and to understand further. This is, first of all, the list of members. Not all of them are here, but some of them you can meet later on as you go through the stations. We have Alex Petico from Residence, Antonio Brivia, Federation of Students Presidents this year, Beth Kelleher, from graduate student from psychology, Chris Reed, Associate Provost Students, Jim Rush, Dean of Applied Health Sciences, who wasn't able to be here today, Nikki St. Clair, undergrad student who was instrumental in moving this forward last year. You remember the large petition that went forward. Nikki and some of her peers were active in making that happen. Paul Ward, an Associate Professor, Electrical and Computer Engineering, and Vanessa Lamb, Graduate Students Association. So that's the core committee, but as you're going to find out shortly, this process reached much further than the 8 people I just named. So we had our first meeting May 24th, and some people will say, wow, that's a long time. Why did it take so long? I think this has been a very aggressive timeline, and it's only because people have been as committed as we've talked about so far. So the committee met bi-weekly, receiving numerous presentations, submissions, and then reports from 5 different panels, which I'm going to describe shortly. We had applications from about 300 people for these panels and ended up having about 100 people involved just in these supporting panels. I'm happy to say that across the board, I would estimate more than half of the membership of all these groups was students, undergraduate and graduate students. We had a launch day on July 27th, and again, middle of the summer, you think there's not much happening on campus. That was a very active day. We had great participation. We had Mike Condra as a speaker who's well known in Canada in terms of student mental health. In the afternoon, our panel groups started their process of meeting and working with each other on the questions that were given to them. We had a progress meeting where we also had a forum in the SLC associated with the Federations of Student AGM question and answer forum in October. And then the report, as Ferdinand indicated, it was delivered in February. Just briefly from the terms of reference, so we were looking at collecting a broad set of information, student mental health, considering UW, student body, and larger societal context, advising on the status of progress, mental health initiatives across the university, and looking at root causes of student stress, anxiety, and depression, and how to mitigate them proactively instead of reactively. I just want to say this for a moment, the panel structure, so these are 5 kind of theme areas, and each of these panels were given a set of questions, and in some cases they added additional questions, and these seemed like we were covering quite a broad territory, and in fact I think we did hit the mark with these particular topics, having all these groups well represented. I encourage you, I know some of you have read the report. If you want to drill a bit deeper, the panel reports from each of these groups are also online. They're included as one of the sections of the report, and there's some very interesting reading that you'll find there. Each of the groups came up with recommendations as well, many of which are represented as part of the 36. I just want to briefly talk about this. You might not be able to see it, but there's an organization called the Canadian Association of College and University Student Services, or Caucus, and a few years ago, as you can imagine, many campuses are in a similar position trying to understand their own response to student mental health, and this umbrella organization provided a guiding framework, which I think was worthwhile, and many of our panel groups ended up looking to this framework to organize their thoughts. And briefly, what this shows is that there are aspects of a response that are directed to the whole campus body, to the whole student body. And those aspects are things like, do we have the right policies? Are we looking at the right practices that promote mental health or don't get in the way of mental health? We also look at things like, are we an inclusive campus? Are we creating stress by limiting social inclusion for some, or have we created an environment that is socially inclusive for all? And then what are we doing about mental health awareness? What are we doing about stigma? Those are also topics within the Caucus model. And then in the next level, if we go down to the darker yellow bars, we understand that there is going to be times when a group of students are having difficulty coping. And we might not say this is mental illness. We might say, this is a temporary stress, and the person might be asking, what's wrong with me? And so we need to have a response for that group too. And this isn't necessarily a treatment response. This might be giving proper information, having available online resources, having workshops and things. So in this area where, do we have a capacity to respond to these concerns? And can we promote self-management among this group of people? And then finally, these last two bars, now this is sometimes where we get stuck and we say, oh, that's what mental health is. These are the students with mental health concerns. And yes, we need those crisis responses. We need mental health services, a range of mental health services. And certainly the report does talk a lot about that. But this is, again, a subset of students, and we want to be able to respond to them, but this is not the complete mental health response. And that's what this model is communicating. So roughly organized on using the Caucus model, there was quite a bit of work done by all of the panels looking at what aspects of campus policy and practice is conducive to student mental health. And we recognize that our set of policies at this institution is designed to help support the university's mission for education and research. But we recognize that there may be unwittingly parts of those policies and practice that are not being helpful to student wellness. And so when we look at the recommendations around this area, we are talking about applying a lens of student mental health to policy and practice, to going through whether it's all at once or as new policies come on, and asking that question, what would be the impact on student wellness of going in this direction? And then there were some specific areas that our panels identified, and I don't have them all here, but the ones that you'll see highlighted in the report is a lot of talk about how difficult it is for students around getting appropriate documentation and accommodation for mental illness and symptoms, the amount of work that goes into getting that appropriate documentation. So we want to be looking at that and see if there's a better way we can respond. There was some commonality and discussion about examination scheduling. Is this creating undue stress? Some aspects of CoOp scheduling, and certainly in recent conversations, recognizing that for some students there's never a break, there's never a breather, appropriate breather, and so we want to look at this aspect of scheduling and determine if there's better process we can put in place. And then there's some work, and particularly brought by our academic panel, that is encouraging us to look at teaching approaches, to look at perhaps even assessment approaches. And I want to say with this that we're not suggesting the removal of stress at university. There's some inherent stress with the university, but our academic panel telling us quite strongly that there are some ways that we can reduce some of the more undue stress. This mental health and awareness, oh, pardon me, I'm sorry, I've flipped one. Inclusive and supportive campus. So this really, as I mentioned earlier, talks about how are we doing around the area of social support and social inclusion. We recognize that some students, some individuals on campus are not benefiting from social support, and we know that social support is a very important one of those root causes around mental health. We know that some students are affected by negative interactions with faculty and staff, and we've come to know that there's some aspects of our environment, the built environment, that are not as conducive as they could be to social support and interaction. So what do we need to be doing? We want to see an enhancement of peer-to-peer mentoring opportunities, and we know that there's some great examples on this campus of how peers are helping each other, supporting each other in a structured way. Obviously, in an unstructured way, many people benefit from the support of their friends, family, but where those areas are falling through the cracks, can we put a system in place to ensure that everybody has an opportunity for that kind of peer-to-peer support? We need to improve the engagement of vulnerable populations. So as we looked at this topic of social support, we come to recognize that some groups, international students, for example, may not be getting the benefit of social support that would be preventative. We want to establish and look at a process to address those problematic interactions. And we do believe that these are rare, but they came through enough times through our panels, recognize that students have had some undue stress again related to interactions with faculty and staff, and we want to have a better way to address those. There's a recommendation about that. And then we want to keep working on our environments, our physical environments. There's been a lot of great work done in the new buildings where there's opportunities for students to sit together to interact, but we want to keep working in that area, and there's some new projects that I know are on the books that will help greatly. Mental health and awareness. A lot of conversation in society, in Canadian society, about stigma, effects of stigma. We have some great public education campaigns, some of which we are involved, like Bell Let's Talk. It was great to see all those blue hats this year around, but there's still more work to do to make sure that individuals are not feeling a barrier to participation in services or asking for help as a result of concerns about being identified as having a mental illness or a mental health problem. We know that in some pockets of campus there are discussions happening, there are classes happening where mental health awareness is improved. What we'd like to do more of is to just expand this work using various mediums. There's a recommendation about how do we keep this conversation going. I would say for this last 8 months, as I've been involved, there's been a lot of open conversation where people have talked about their experiences, where people have helped others to come forward. And so let's keep the momentum going, and we've talked about that in the report. And there's a lot of discussion among the panel groups and in our other presentations about what faculty and staff need in order for them to respond in the best way to students that are struggling. So we've got some good examples of training that's available. We've got mental health first aid, we've got assist, and various people are taking these, we know it, but we recognize that people are asking for more of this and asking for a more coordinated approach. And so that is going to be an important part of the implementation. And then where possible, can we keep building on those experiences where mental health awareness is built into curriculum? We've got some courses. I know the Applied Health Science program has a course for their own students, or the faculty, related to wellness. And so some people are getting it, but many aren't. And we want to just explore whether there's a way to make this more of a standard opportunity. And then finally, in terms of the recommendations, oh, no, I'm jumping ahead again. I'm feeling a bit rushed because I know we want to get to questions. Prevention and early intervention. There's some good things happening. You know that counseling services are offering coping skills workshops, are offering online workshops, information. I'm going to speak briefly about one area here, and that is to develop a more robust and large-scale program around resiliency. So the concept of resiliency is talked about in various pockets, and I do believe there are different definitions. So we want to come up with a definition that we will promote and build a program around making available. I think, simply speaking, that helping people to help themselves, helping people to process their own experiences at university in a way that is helpful to themselves. Service delivery and access. So as Ferritin said, we're concerned about wait lists, and we go to this in terms of adding counselors, mental health staff, and it's wonderful that the students and the university has very quickly stepped up on this issue to support the work that's done in counseling and health services. A lot of work has been done on wait times, but clearly it's not enough, and our implementation group will now look at whether that work, whether there's more, not just about more people, but how people are brought in. These are things that we want to keep looking at. So we are looking at adjusting service levels to meet the growing need, developing a step care model, which many universities have moved toward, which speaks more about the right kinds of resources at the right time, and making sure that if someone comes in is asking, maybe they're just looking for that one-off meeting with professional staff, with a doctor, with a counselor, and just staying connected in some way, as opposed to, but in other cases, no, maybe it has to be a weekly. And all the way up to right now, we're looking at the area of a complex care team for individuals who are struggling with pretty significant mental health issues. We want to make sure that our professional, our campus wellness staff are trained to deal with the various groups that maybe are presenting with unique challenges. In this slide, I'm calling it vulnerable groups, but we also know that they may be disproportionately affected by mental health concerns. Again, international students, racialized students, Indigenous students, LGBTQ, and we want to make sure that our staff are responding in the best possible way to these groups. And talked about the community partnership. We don't want to think or believe that we can do this all, and that we're very appreciative of the connection with our community organizations, and I think we're going to see some great benefits to having a better connection to enable to provide in those areas where we can't, whether it's after hours, whether it's during peak times. How do we join the community into this question to make the best possible service system? Ferritin already talked about the implementation committee, and yes, and to set priorities. We're not going to do 36 recommendations right away, but there's definitely some actions we can take more quickly, and some that need more quick attention. I'm not in a position to put a timeline on any of this, but with Dr. Hurdy's stepping in, very soon you're going to see some of these actions rolling out, in addition to what you've already heard about today. The Okanagan Charter, I encourage you to go online, check this out, and I do believe that our university is very interested in moving in this direction and adopting the Okanagan Charter, which provides a framework for how you go about promoting student wellness. How do you embed in all aspects of campus culture across administration, operations, and academic mandates? So some of this you're already hearing through the recommendations I've talked about, but making a powerful statement about the university's commitment to healthy campus and student wellness is really what this charter is going to offer for us. You'll see some reference in the report to and some questions about maybe we should be doing some more research right here on this campus to help answer some of these deeper questions on student mental health or young adult mental health. And so there may be an opportunity there for somebody to step up and take this on. And then joining our other university and post-secondary partners in advocacy with the province. So there was a very important report called In It Together that was brought forward by student groups, university administrators, college administrators, that has made some pretty pointed challenges to the province about mental health funding. So the context that we're in here when we're talking about mental health is, and we're trying to do what we can do in this campus, but you don't have to go very far to know that the community is struggling, that individuals in the community are having a hard time getting the help that they need. And I think this is an issue that our politicians and governments have to continue to work on our behalf. Those would be my comments, and I'll pass it back to Sandra.
Thanks very much, Walter. We do have one further guest speaker this afternoon, and I'm very delighted to introduce Angela Pereira, who currently serves on the Waterloo Alumni Council and is a proud alumna of kinesiology from the Faculty of Applied Health Sciences. Angela, please come forward. We look forward to your remarks.
Thank you, Sandra. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm a registered kinesiologist and a holistic nutritionist with practices in Toronto and Haliburton. I'm here today as a Waterloo alumna and a member of the University of Waterloo's Alumni Council, as Sandra mentioned. Our president, John Haddock, is currently in Africa and has asked that I speak on his behalf today. I'm an alumni member of Waterloo's Senate and Senate Executive Committee. An alumni representative and mental health expert committee member for the President's Advisory Committee on Student Mental Health, and alumni of AHS's kinesiology program. I'm passionate about physical and mental health. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the alumni group's mission with students over the next 5 minutes or so. As founder and owner of 3 companies, Angela Pereira Kinesiology, Angela Pereira Nutrition, and First Line Education, I've focused my client work, my course teaching, and mentoring on the connections between mental health, holistic nutrition, targeted supplementation, and physical activity. I'm fully engaged in the conversations that my alma mater are having with our community surrounding student mental health. I began to experience depression for the first time just 3 weeks into my very first term here at Waterloo. The anxiety and depression I felt then, I still experience now. The cycles are shorter, just a day or two of feeling out of sorts, rather than weeks and weeks on end of feeling grumpy, irritable, exhausted, and numb. It took me 20 years to figure out what was going on and how to treat it without medication. Now I constantly tinker with a combination of holistic nutrition, a variety of supplements, various forms of exercise, depending upon how I'm feeling that particular day, and also some lifestyle hacks that rotate depending again on how I'm feeling. I can now manage my anxiety and depression quite well. Luckily, my struggles were recognized, albeit 5 dark years after they began, and my mental health did not deteriorate even further. Because of my years of firsthand, or what's called lived experience, I have a deep understanding and appreciation of mental health struggles from my own perspective. I wish to pass this knowledge on to today's students so you don't have to go through what I did while I was here at Waterloo. My poor experiences seeking support for my own mental health struggles while here at Waterloo is the major reason why I have re-engaged with Waterloo as an alumni volunteer. Let's change this. My key message to our students today is Waterloo alumni are with you. We want to ensure you have the strongest and most supportive network available to ensure your success. The Alumni Council represents the University of Waterloo's global alumni. The council is made up of 16 alumni volunteers representing all faculties and colleges and almost 200,000 alumni worldwide. We provide an active alumni perspective and voice to enhance and encourage alumni engagement. We all experience student life at the University of Waterloo. We understand what you're going through. As an alumni team, we want to continue our connection with our alma mater by participating in a larger conversation. We wish to reach out to our current students with our unique perspectives, as well as our resources, our contacts, and our connections. In November 2017, the Alumni Council struck a task force on alumni engagement. This task force came about because of several passionate discussions around the need for deepening alumni engagement and strengthening our alumni connections with students to build a stronger student-alumni bridge. We recognize the importance of opening our network and community to Waterloo students as a place where they can find resources and support so they can enhance their pride and their connection to the University of Waterloo. To date, the focus of the Student-Alumni Bridge has been to establish strong global alumni chapters and ambassador regions that can enhance the CoOp Connections program run by the Federation of Students. It's our view that opening up these networks to students traveling for CoOp, for study, or other purposes will deepen the sense of community and reduce the feelings of disconnect and isolation that often occur when students are away from our campus community. In order to ensure that the alumni network is best utilized, the Alumni Council would like to remain active partners in the conversations surrounding student mental health. We can offer many resources from the alumni community to help further the recommendations of the President's Advisory Committee on Student Mental Health. Most importantly, we want to work with our university and our current students to ensure that the student-alumni bridge that we're building is a network that students and alumni alike can leverage as a key support throughout their lives. To our students, quite simply, we need to know how we can help you succeed. Whether this be with your current studies, your CoOp experiences, or your future dreams. We're working together right now as an alumni council to make these connections easier to access and more meaningful and relevant to you throughout your years here at Waterloo. As chair of the Alumni Council Ad Hoc Committee on Alumni Engagement, I'd like to broaden our discussion to ensure we're aware of how alumni can assist current students. I believe that we can, number one, strengthen the culture of a supportive community, enhancing the caring, inclusive environment. Number two, create a call to action for alumni and community members who care about our students and encourage them to interact with our supportive community. And number three, be responsive to what our students want in real time. As an alumni council community, we are in active consultation on these topics right now. Together, we can strengthen our community. To the University of Waterloo and our students, I repeat, Waterloo alumni are with you. Please reach out to any member of the Alumni Council. Your input, your feedback, your concerns, and your suggestions are most welcome. Let us further this conversation together and ensure we take action to create the strongest community possible here at the University of Waterloo. Thank you.
While I am thanking Angela, I'll invite Walter and Ferridan to join me back on stage. Angela, those were some very much appreciated remarks. We look forward to hearing from you and others in the future about the resources and networks that the Alumni Council is building. Thank you very much. So we have concluded the formal remarks. I look forward to an opportunity to hear some of your questions and comments in the upcoming question and discussion period. So as I'm looking around the room, I know we'll see some interest and some questions emerge, and I'll give you a chance to formulate that as we await and look forward to engaging in the conversation. Any questions? Absolutely. Can I ask you to wait for a microphone and introduce yourself with your name, please? Thank you.
Yeah, hi, my name is Alison Sachs. I'm a PhD student in applied math. So one thing I wanted to do is I want to appreciate the acknowledgement in this report of the events that precipitated the report. That did not happen in the report in 2011, and the events that precipitated that report. And so that's a huge improvement on accountability that I'd like to acknowledge on the university side. I'd also like to apologize. I'm going to read this from here. I've been basically up for 48 hours trying to read this report, and it's ironically been terrible for my mental health. So I'd like to thank you for acknowledging in your remarks when you began speaking that this is a societal and a systemic issue. The university is complicit in this systemic issue, as we all are in societal issues. So let me quote a question put forth by the academic panel of the PAC-SMH, and that is, how do we balance a culture of competition with a culture of wellness? In this question, the report seems to assert that competition is necessary to produce a rigorous academic environment. And this is something that I see is at the core of the societal issue. So what I would like to ask is, what roles do you see this university playing in healing the many divides, inequities, and oppressions created by this, and what, pardon me, created by competition? And what roles do you see the university playing in changing the harmful societal context of conflating competition with quality?
Thank you, Alison. I'll ask Verdon first.
I'll attempt to answer at least part of it, and then if I can't, Walter, you'll help me out. Excellent question. I should say that I'm not going to repeat this. I say that excellent question for each one of them. Every question is an excellent one. It all depends on how we define competition. There's always another sort of competition as we go through life. To enter into this university is a competition, finishing high school is a competition. But how do we see this? How do we really provide an environment that we see this as a challenge? We see this as something that is done with full understanding of its consequences, whether it is a healthy competition or is it really a kind of competition that is totally unnecessary. And as we're doing this university, we fully realize that there is continuity of life after university, and there is there's life after university, that whether it's a job or career or anything, but there will be one or another sort of challenge waiting for us. So as Walter indicated in the report, how do we build resilience here to ensure that we are ready for whatever life throws at us? In doing so, however, we are going to look very carefully, and that is, whether it's the Okanagan Charter or various types of lenses we'll be using, whether this environment here that I will say, and as openly as I can, we are very proud of the academic rigor and quality of what we offer here to our students. But are we doing it in a way that we put some unnecessary stressors that really do not add anything to the quality or excellence of our programs? If there are, and I'm sure there are, we are committed to just getting rid of them, okay? But at the same time, we are not promising to create an artificial environment that is comfortable for many of us, but when we leave the university, we will say, wow, we did not have an opportunity to build our resilience. So it is a fine balance. We are committed to the excellence and quality of our programs, but we're not going to continue doing them if there are things like exam scheduling, programming. I'm just giving you a couple of examples. There are a whole variety of them, and that's what it's all about, that we are going to go through all of them, making sure that whether this is how we started, whether this is the way we've been doing it for the past 30 years, 40 years, 60 years, doesn't really matter. Are they essential? Are they required? Are they congruent with today's needs and facts? And we'll make sure that our students, while they are still receiving excellent quality programs, they do not need to be unnecessarily stressed over things that don't need to be part of our everyday life. So that's, I believe, our commitment, my commitment. Walter, you were a lot more involved in these conversations during the academic panel. If there's anything else you want to add, please go ahead.
Actually, that was really well said, Verdon, and I would just draw attention to a couple examples that were discussed in the report in the academic panel, areas where there's ranking. Do we need to be doing that? Do we need to make, then also the question of, assessment are we needing to do all the assessment that we're doing in order to get the information across? So, you know, those are the kind of activities that probably lead to this competition. And I think what's actually very promising here is that we are even introducing this topic. We may not have got it right at this stage, but you know, if you referenced the 2011, 2012 report, you know, I don't think at that time people were ready to get into the discussion about matters like this as we are right now. So I do think there will be some additional action coming out of it. Thanks for your question.
Thanks, Walter and Ferden. I do see a hand raised in the white shirt. Bethany, if you want to take the mic in that direction. Thank you. Remember to remind us your name.
Thank you. I'm Blake. I'm a fourth-year student here. So when considering the University of Waterloo in comparison to the University of Guelph, which with counselors to student ratios are very similar, but wait times here being on average about 5 weeks, and there about 1 week. I think that's kind of speaking to the culture we currently have at this institution. And I think a big part of changing that is our faculty. So mentioned in the report is increased opportunities for faculty to have training in regards to mental health for their students. My question is, what is the administration going to do to ensure that all faculty across different faculty, or all staff across all faculty at the university are taking this as a top priority?
There is a recommendation about that. It specifically talks about being part of the onboarding for new faculty. So I think that's one step. There is definitely lots of talk in that report about, you know, getting the information out to faculty. At this stage, I don't think we can say this can be mandatory training, but I think you know, perhaps it can be delivered in such a way that is attractive and people find it helpful and useful, find it relevant in their daily life. So I think that the approach, again, I don't want to second guess the next steps here on where we go with this, but it is, again, to promote this as a way to enhance the life of the student, but I think the life of the faculty and staff member as well.
Yeah. Walter, if I could add another word. There's nothing more powerful than volunteering to do something. We don't have the authority to make it mandatory for anybody, but I see tremendous willingness among our faculty members. Quite a few of them are here in this room to participate, to be part of this, and they are willing to do that. They demand that kind of training, and they will be engaged. They want to help. There's always, of course, a little bit of anxiety. What if, because nobody is outside the counselor services and, you know, professionals. They're trained professionals. Will I make the right call? But it's much better than saying that this is not part of what I do here. They want to be involved, they want to help, and this is, I cannot ask right now anything more than that from our faculty members. That's fantastic. And I'm not just talking about 5 or 6, there are hundreds of our faculty, my faculty colleagues. They are really want to volunteer and help. This is fantastic. Do you want to say anything about, well, Waterloo wait times? Because I think we have the largest number of
We'll have a further comment?
First part of your question.
Yeah, I mean, the question about differential rates of counselors, I think we are addressing that through this report. I'm not familiar with the details of what other universities are doing, but I think they're probably trying to get to the same place to make sure they have the appropriate level of care. You know, we're not in a race with other universities on this, but our impression is that our resources are comparable, if not better than what's available in many Ontario universities.
Thank you, Walter and Ferden. I do have a question in the fourth row. Bethany, you might want to come around from this side, or that one. And we'll take the question from a patient questioner.
Hi, my name is Pat Duong, and I'm a third-year chemical engineering student and also the VP academic of the Engineering Society. So I want to thank you today for coming here to speak to us and having this open forum. My question is, to what extent should we expect the university to support mental health of students on CoOp and the transition between CoOp terms and academic terms, especially because CoOp is not explicitly really mentioned in the report? It focuses mainly on on-campus solutions.
I'll start with that. That's a great question, thank you. And I can't point exactly where it was, but it was talked about a lot, exactly what you're saying. I recently had a meeting with some of the directors in CoOp on that very question. What we're looking at to improve the response of off-campus students, particularly those in CoOp, is looking at some alternate kinds of interactive methods. For example, there's a strong movement now in therapist-assisted online services where individuals don't have to necessarily be in the office. So we want to ramp up that side of it. I believe there is also a discussion about how do we familiarize students with the resources in the communities where they are. I think some of that work is being done by some of the CoOp advisors, local advisors, but there is reference to getting more coordinated about that, making it part of the protocol. So those are the two areas I'm familiar with.
Whether you're a student right here, whether you're on a CoOp term, whether you're on an exchange term, I really don't care. You are our student, and we are 100% committed to your well-being. So if you're on a CoOp term, you're away from here, you could be anywhere in the world, you reach out to us. And we'll make sure that you'll get the necessary support you need. To be able to do that, however, if a call like this comes in, and we're not going to try to reinvent the wheel. We need to be well prepared, making sure that we have a really good database. We've already figured out where the resources are, where our students are, and we'll be able to immediately direct you to those resources. So those are some of the things that we need to get them right. But whether you're a CoOp student, whether you are right here, this is the place where you belong to. You're our student, and we have that responsibility to you, regardless of where in the world you are.
Thank you both. Do you still have your question? Yes. Bethany, there's one more that I promised. Fourth row, gray sweater. And while Bethany is making her way to the individual there, we will take one or two more questions following this. I'm mindful that we do have volunteers from the advisory committee that are on standby waiting to have a direct conversation. Yes, please go ahead and remind us who you are.
Hello. Hi, my name is Stephen Lewis. I'm a researcher in the Electrical Computer Engineering Department and a former student. My question is for the President. So I appreciated what you said, President, about reducing wait times. I think the current wait times of 4 to 5 weeks for a typical appointment is absolutely unacceptable. I think what I'd like to ask is whether we would be able to commit to reducing these wait times in a concrete matter to, say, 1 week or something thereabout. I wonder, looking at the numbers now, the number of counselors we have and the number of counselors we're thinking of getting with the current targets, it really doesn't seem like it would be enough, to reduce the wait times to the extent required. So if we would be willing to commit to further resources as required in order to meet these targets. Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Ferdinand.
We are, as our committee, this next phase committee will start its work. In the meantime, I want to do a number of things, one of which is we will be completely transparent on the wait times issue, because I have a very different set of data than what I'm hearing. And wait times are categorized, whether it's an emergency, whether it's an acute case, whether it's whatever kind of case it is, there are different types of wait times. I am told that in certain cases, there is absolutely no wait time. The student is seen on the very same day within 1 or 2 hours when the student reaches out or goes to counseling. There are cases, yes, student is seen within 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm not going to argue or try to defend this. You could very well be 100% right. I don't know what I'd like to do to bring some clarity to the wait times, and I've asked Walter to look into it and really list it so that everybody will know what kind of wait time, times we have. Secondly, what are we doing about this? Yes, one thing, it was so crystal clear. We needed to add more counselors. We're committed to it. As I speak, I believe you've already trying to fill those positions. Is this enough? Yes or no? I don't know. But I'm not going to rely on this. We have a number of things that we will put under consideration. Can we use technology? Can we use AI? Can you use different kinds of means that you will immediately know what you need to do? We will look into some solutions towards how can we deal with peak times. If there are peak times, can we really address those by providing some other means? And I'm not going to go into details, but there are possibilities, and that's exactly what we're going to be looking into. And finally, we will need to continuously monitor it, making sure that tomorrow we may be okay with wait times, but if we take our eyes off this and say that, okay, we're doing fine, wait times are okay, we may go back to where we were before. So we'll make sure that we are handling this. And in a way, I'm going to touch on something that you didn't directly bring up. Other issue is to make sure that our students actually are able to go where they should. They know where to go. They are not wasting times, because when you're in that situation that you need help, it is not really easy to find, okay, I have so clear directions, I know exactly where to go, I know exactly who to talk to, that you will know this well in advance. And we will also make sure that hopefully there will be some measures in place, some initiatives in place that will reduce the need for going to counseling services for help, because hopefully we will have gotten rid of some of the stresses that will cause for our students to ask for those help. So for all of those, I'm hoping that's the reason why this is a longer term approach. This is the reason why we need to look at all 36 recommendations all together and making sure that they are all connected and linked with each other.
Thanks, Feridun. Jane, I'm going to ask you, there's a question at the back, yes, in the plaid shirt. So let's take that question and we'll keep moving along.
Hello.
Thank you.
My name is Arash. I'm a PhD student here. I didn't do my undergrad here, but I did my master's at McMaster University. So these are the two campuses that I can compare here in Canada. Thanks for the forum and all the talks. But there's something that I see is at the root of this whole problem of mental health. Somewhere in the report, there's one of the recommendations that there should be some effort to increase the sense of belonging that students have toward the campus. But when I look at this campus is not alive. I mean, I do not see liveness in this campus. And a lot of it, I think, is related to the way that this university at the root is run. And that is, this university is industry-driven. And like the CoOp program is a real manifestation of this. So you're here for four months. You have to worry about interviews and applying for jobs. Go out 4 months. Next you come back. You cannot create a sense of belonging within 4 months. The bonds just cannot be generated. It's the human brain. You cannot impose it on a mentality to, okay, create a bond and a sense of belonging. Within 4 months, go away, come back, and still feel belong. So I think a real critical thinking has to be made about the way that the university has been run, especially in the engineering faculties. I don't know about other schools. This is one point. And another point that I'm making is that I'm an international student. And I've heard that, okay, there's an effort to increase the number of counselors. Yes, this is an amazing thing. But when it comes to international students coming from overseas, one thing is that because of two reasons, language and cultural gap and difference, there is not much willingness to go to the counselors. And I have been to the counselors, and I could not see helping. And it's not a problem of the counselor, not that he or she is not a good counselor at all, or they're not trained enough. Just because of a cultural and a language gap, the connection cannot be made. So, and we keep admitting more and more international students every year. Yes, increased number of counselors, but I'm warning, it's in a warning that this might not be effective as you think for the international students. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I think you've sort of highlighted that part of the report that, you know, I talked about social support and inclusiveness, and I totally agree with you that, you know, there's work to be done in that area. We've suggested, you know, more emphasis on peer-to-peer mentoring and building a stronger network of peers, and what can the university do to facilitate that. Perhaps we've waited for this to happen organically, and in some instances it has happened organically, but it's clear from your comments, and I think other things we've heard, that, you know, we need to take a little bit more of a catalyst role. The structure of CoOp, no, there's a little bit of information in there. You know, my sense is that we're going to have to figure out how to get around that barrier, because it is so much a strength of this university, is what people come here for exactly what you're saying for. But I think we are recognizing, as you say, that it has some costs in terms of building those social relationships. Secondly, in terms of international students, yeah, I appreciate that comment about, and we've heard that, you know, that it, for example, the term mental health means something very different in some groups, in some cultural groups, and we can't just assume it means the same for everybody to go to a counselor. There's some work and starting to think about this, about some specific internationally oriented counselors. Certainly our staff are trained and need to keep getting trained in that area. The other thing I draw your attention to is, you know, I know there's groups that are forming themselves around support, around international groups or religious groups, and I think we have to support that as best we can, so people can get that listening ear in other ways other than just going to counselors.
I guess you said everything I would have said. The only thing I could add is there's a lot more work to do for us, especially when it comes to international students. As everybody has witnessed over the past several years, the number of international students on our campus is increasing every year, and we need to be very proactive and provide not just mental health services, but much broader set of services to our international students. And I couldn't agree with you more. We need to all together continue working on towards building that campus spirit, university spirit, that everybody thinks that, well, I'm a member of this university. I'm not just a graduate student doing my master's or PhD in Department of X.
Thank you, Feridun and Walter. This is a very difficult task for me, but I would offer that Feridun, Walter, our leadership team that's spread around the room, Dr. Hurdy's, will be available over the next 30 minutes, if not longer. We have 6 stations, again, with volunteers available to take your questions, feedback, comments as direct and as honest as you've shared them already. We very much look forward to hearing more. I would invite you to stay and continue the conversation. I want to thank you for being here. This is the beginning of a journey as we take action against the recommendations that are so clearly stated in the student mental health report that you have in your hands this afternoon. Let me thank you for coming. Thanks for the audience we've had that's joined us via live stream, and we look forward to having more interactive discussions as we finish off this afternoon. Thanks very much, everyone.